Now we're uncredible.
Welcome to the Uncredible Podcast. My name's Jeremy, and I'm Uncredible. Let's jump right into the Substack and look at what's going on next week. And we do have an article. I'm getting to the point where I'm pretty caught up on articles, a little behind on. I used to have a queue of articles that I could fire up. I don't have that anymore. I kind of used everything up with all the running going on. Let's jump in here and see that. Okay, here we go. So next week's article is this article called Above the Rules. I just wrote this week. Just kind of looking at, well, the subtitle kind of gives it away, The Bastards in Charge. I was reminiscing the last couple of weeks, but mostly this week, on this thing that I've seen in a lot of companies I've worked for. And for those who don't know, I've worked for, I think the number's at 23 different companies over the years. Nonprofits, profits, all kinds of different small, big corporations. A couple, I think one of them was Fortune 500, one's Fortune 100. Just really, really big companies. I mean, all the way from like gas stations and delivering newspapers, all the way up to, just now when I say like Fortune 500, Fortune 100, just a regular guy in all those businesses, just a floor worker, somebody putting bags of chips into a box, that kind of a thing, for Frito-Lay, for example. And it occurred to me that there is, and we're going to talk a lot about this in the episode today too, because we're going to talk about it from the governing class in the U.S., but just from a business standpoint, I've just been thinking a lot about the people who have authority over other human beings, and that is such a weird and strange dynamic to me. And I wrote this article because I basically wanted to share a ridiculous number of examples. Now, I use them in the article as illustrations, but they're all real. They're all real things that I've genuinely seen happen, and it's across the board as I sit here and I think about like who or what company was not like this, or which leader. I mean, I don't want to make sweeping generalizations, but it seems to me that this is a consistent theme in all the companies I've worked for, like all of them, where there's a hypocrisy or a rules for thee and not for me. And I'm not sure if I've never been in a I guess what I would consider to be a leadership role, and I've avoided it because of this sort of dynamic. But you probably can't see it on the screen. I've got the header image here, but I built the header image to sort of demonstrate this hypocrisy where you have a manager in this particular screenshot or illustration or whatever. He's writing up his employee, while at the same time on his monitor, he's doing all the things that he's writing the employee up for. So like he's got a football game and TikTok on his phone. He's got a little sticky note there talking about how he's going to leave half a day to go see his kid's baseball game or whatever. He's going to meet his wife for lunch. And, I don't understand that dynamic, that ability of a person to hold somebody to a higher standard than yourself. And, there's a part of me that wants to think that it's just the way that it is. And there's another part of me that wants to believe that that's just how people, best are managed, if that makes sense. So I had to set this up. I was setting all this up. I had both cameras rolling. I'm gonna have to figure something out for that. But I went to switch to this camera, and the camera was off. But like I was saying, it always fascinates me that people are able to be in a leadership role, write somebody up, and miss the fact that they're doing the very things that they're writing this person up for. And, I used to think that it was just my perception of somebody who was underneath somebody. I just didn't like authority, that I had problems with authority. But it seems like a consistent theme with a lot of people. There's a very few number of good leaders who expect nothing different from others. Let me say it this way. They don't expect the privilege of their job to override their responsibility. And so, I think sometimes people get into these management roles or these leadership roles, and they're like, oh, I've kind of made it. We talked about reaching the precipice a couple weeks ago on the Substack. And that's not a thing. Like, you're still, like, if you're the type of person who's striving to get to a place where then you can be over other people and they do the work for you, I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's good. And it seems like very human for people to get in these leadership roles and then back away from the work itself and not want to help people. Now, some of that's strategic, right? If you become a manager, you have different responsibilities. And I've tried over the years to understand that those responsibilities are different than what the average, like if I'm putting nuts and bolts on a product, it's not the manager's job to also put those nuts and bolts on. I totally understand that. But also, the role of the manager or the office worker or the clerical person, if their role, so like the guy who's putting bags of chips in a box all day long, or driving a fork truck, or driving a truck, or putting, soldering a chipboard all day, like, and he has like a 30-minute break where he's got to go and come back, and there's a stopwatch and all that. If that same dynamic doesn't reflect in the role of the manager. Now, again, I'm not saying he or she should be doing the same job, but what I'm saying is they should also be, working, whether it's mental, clerical, whatever it is, in the same capacity. The amount of effort, I guess, is what I would say. And what I've actually found is these leaders, a lot of them, I say these leaders, it's most of them, most of the ones I've seen. And it's funny because it works its way up. So the dynamic that I've seen is, like, you'll have somebody who works on the floor. Let's say it's somebody who drives a fork truck. That's a good example. They drive a fork truck all day, and then they become the warehouse manager. And then they get off the fork truck, which is understandable, right? The whole point of them taking that job was so that they could manage people, right? And so their job might be scheduling and making sure someone covers this guy or that girl when she's off. Those are all parts of the job. Or maybe going to a meeting to report to the rest of the team how things are going. That's all understandable. But what you find happening is they get off the fork truck and they go in and they take an hour lunch, and someone comes to them and says, "Hey man, Cheryl called off," like whatever. And he's like, "Well, you guys are going to have to figure it out. He's not doing his job." But as the person above him is responsible for something, right? Like, let's say he's responsible for reporting to the CEO their numbers. And instead of running those numbers, which is his job, he makes this next guy do it. So that guy sits around and sort of like rules over the regular warehouse people. And then that guy above him comes in and goes, "Hey man, I need those numbers this week. So-and-so needs, have a meeting, whatever." And then that guy's rushing around doing his job. It's this weird, it's like, if everyone would just do their job, we wouldn't be in this situation. And if everybody was working within their roles, and I talked about this, I think it was last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, I talked about how important it is. We looked at the Business Fix podcast, how important it is to have roles and responsibilities and have that be clear. And it gets the waters get muddier and muddier as you go up. And there's this weird control dynamic that I've just never been able to figure out and understand. But yeah, so that's the article this week coming on the Substack. I did want to bring up the Uncredible, the book chapters. I did use up all of the ones that I had stored up. I have to do some work now on those. Not sure how quickly those are going to come out. I even put in my notes that there's going to be a bit of a pause on this just because I'm going to be increasing the amount of work that I do at my job to make a little bit more money. Overtime's kicking back in, so I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be dialing back the running as well. So I'm going to try to focus on getting the podcast out and getting my regular article per week, but not going to try to chase the Uncredible, the book. We'll write when I have time. We'll throw some stuff together and get. What I like to do with this is I like to put the chapters out there and get an entire chapter ready to go before I release it. So what I prefer to do is have a whole chapter done, break it up into a couple of posts, and then share that with you guys. So that's kind of like the process. And I've done the full introduction, and then all of chapter 1 is up on the Substack, and it's broken up into like 8 different pieces. Ultimately, once I get it all assembled, we'll throw it together and get you something good there. But for right now, the Uncredible, the book probably won't be seeing a whole lot from that. Some of you might be relieved if you're on the Substack. I was doing that every Monday. We're not going to have that every Monday now for a little while. We'll bring it back when things slow down. And then Uncredible, the clips and highlights. I am still chasing this down, trying to do 2 episodes a week until I get caught up with the old stuff. Just released episode 4, which, man, it was fun. Going back through episode 4 was interesting because one of the podcast features I did, I've come a long way. It was only 6 months ago. Well, I mean, episode 4, yeah, it was about 6 months ago, 5 months ago. I featured the cerebral palsy perspective with Chad and Daryl, who I've had a lot of interaction with over the last couple of months. It's been fun, but it was funny to go back because we all of us, like the podcast episode that I was doing along with theirs was all looked just over 6 months. It looked different. We've all come a little bit further in our progression in doing this technology, and it just speaks to the fact that if you just put your mind to something, click record, and get after it, you'll get better at it. And so you just got to try it and put your best foot forward, and then learn, and then apply what you've learned, and just keep going. So you can apply that in, as I've mentioned, in running, but also in podcasting. So, but I'm going to keep trying to drop the Uncredible clips and highlights last week's episode. I'll probably get out today. I'm trying to make the priority the most recent episode. So I think I have like episodes 22 through 27. This is episode 28. So I've got that set up all right. Been doing that pretty good. Last week's, I've been sitting on episode 4 for a while, and I really wanted to get that one out. So we got that cranked out. So now let's go ahead and transition. I almost transitioned too quick. I was going to go to our weekly update, but first, we have to transition into our song, and this is track number 5 of the Uncredible album. And this is actually, I think of all the songs that I've made, this song is actually my favorite one. I think I can say that safely. And it was the last one that I made. It's called No Ordinary Love. It's track 5 on the album. And it comes directly after Time Clock, which Time Clock is sort of in the mind of the person who is either running or trying to get to his work on time and thinking about quitting. It's all these like ruminating or intrusive thoughts about quitting and stopping, and I can't stop. And it ends with it's time to wake up. That's how Time Clock ends. This song it wasn't intended to be this way, but when I started like assembling the album, I realized, wow, this kind of picks up where Time Clock leaves off, because you're in the mind of the person who's like trying to get up and get ready to go to work, and then you shift to this image of a spouse wondering if he or she should wake up their spouse. So and this song, it really captures, when I write about Uncredible, I'm usually writing it from the worker-manager dynamic, just like that article we just talked about. So that's sort of where a lot of my passion for it comes from. But there is this reality where when you look at it from the husband-wife perspective, the marital perspective, there's this reality that what the world perceives as a loving relationship, what gets marketed to us, particularly in the United States, is this flowers and gifts, and it's it's this like princess, beautiful, glorious thing. But the reality is, for a couple that's going through an uncredible life, who's working through it, it's a struggle every day. And when I was ministering, one of the things we made a distinction of was different types of love in the Greek. And I'm not going to get into that too much, but one thing that was heavily emphasized was that there is a kind of love, agape love, in the Greek that is sacrificial, and it's not as romantic or sexual or any of those things that you sometimes associate with like relationships. It's just a gritty sort of I'm gonna stick through this with you type of a thing. And so I wrote this song to kind of capture that. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it. It's called No Ordinary Love, And I hope I have everything set up correctly to do this. We'll just do the quick transition here. I think if I click that, it should go. Let me do that as well. That might be the move. Let's try it.
Lunch is packed and ready to go. Clothes are laid out by the door. Honey, you've slept a little too long. Time to get up once more.
Shower, breakfast, a kiss on the cheek.
Don't forget your lunch.
Off you go, the day's just beginning.
Mine's already begun.
It's no ordinary love.
It's not written in the stars.
It's not celebrated with
diamonds, roses, candy, or cards.
It's found in packed lunches,
Late nights,
folded laundry,
forgiving fights, and just a little patience
from the good Lord above. That's right,
it's no ordinary love.
Out the door, another long day. Same machine, same old clock. Maybe today we'll catch a break.
No such luck.
Sweat on my brow, another problem, another truck. But
Somebody's counting on me.
I've gotta push through even though it's gonna suck.
I hope we get out on time.
I wanna make it home for dinner tonight. It's no ordinary love.
It's not written in the stars.
It's not celebrated with
Diamonds, roses, candy, or cards.
It's found in packed lunches,
Late nights,
folded laundry,
forgiving fights, and just a little patience from the good Lord above.
that's right.
It's no ordinary
Forgive me for the times I didn't measure up.
love.
I'm sorry for the things I couldn't fix.
I couldn't give you,
The picture perfect life I
couldn't give you,
everything you deserve,
but I never stopped giving everything I had. This was no ordinary love. It's no ordinary love. It's not written in the stars.
it's not celebrated with
Diamonds, roses, candy, or cards.
found in packed lunches,
Late nights,
folded laundry,
forgiving fights, and just a little patience from the good Lord above.
that's right.
It's no ordinary love.
All right, so that was No Ordinary Love, and that is track number 5 on the Uncredible album. Having a lot of technical difficulties. I actually already made this transition to talk about this, and then I I realized that I had my mic muted the whole time, like everything after the song. But No Ordinary Love really is it's track number 5. It comes after Time Clock, and the whole point of that song is to really accentuate the type of love that we see on a daily basis, every single day. You know, I think about what love looks like to a lot of people, and it's what that song describes. It's candy and flowers, Valentine's Day, dinners, diamonds, and all that stuff. And the reality is, the kind of love that is gritty and hardcore and just in the trenches on a day-to-day basis, it's not glorious. It's not ballroom. I can't think of the word, but it's not fancy. And what the world presents as the kind of love that we strive for, it's sort of like in the moment, like feeling and all this stuff, that has its place. But the kind of love that most of us are experiencing and giving is a sacrificial love, and that's what I wanted to just sort of elevate in that song. So yeah, that's No Ordinary Love. And now I want to get into our weekly update with the running. As you know, last week I ran the Little Miami, the Halfway to the Holidays marathon, and that turned out to be a half marathon. So I've been struggling a lot with inner right leg pain, and even though the hamstring was the thing that presented itself on Saturday last week, what's really becoming apparent to me is that my right leg stabilizer muscles and stuff, and I've known this for a while, they're just not where they need to be. So this next training block it's going to be kind of weird. It's going to be a strange training block because I'm going to try to focus more on recovery and reducing my mileage. Listen, I know that hip and strengthening and legs and all this stuff is important, but I've been trying to use the mileage to build that strength. So like this last training block, I built in a lot of like hill type runs to strengthen my legs. Whether it worked or not, I don't know. I'm fairly convinced that a lot of my troubles that I had at the Halfway to the Holidays marathon was related to the drive. And that's what's got me a little worried about this upcoming 10K, this Little Miami 10K, which I have the little thing up here. What has me concerned is that drive is 5.5 hours. Luckily, it's a 10K, so I'll have a really good chance to assess this. But I'm also going to be trying to go, I'm going to try to PR the 10K. I've never run a 10K, so I have 10K Strava stats, but I've never run an official 10K before. So that'll be fun to attempt. But what I've been looking at with my training is this week has been really weird in the sense that I want to get started on the Marine Corps Marathon, but I'm not ready to go to the Marine Corps Marathon yet. I have to get this 10K out of the way. So I'm kind of rethinking whether or not it was a good idea to schedule these two races back to back. And I'll be honest, the thing that has me the most concerned about this upcoming race is the trip down, and how I'll feel when I get to the end of that, because I am still dealing with a lot of tightness in my right leg. So I don't think it'll be a problem. I think I can swing. I know I can run the 6 miles and get the box checked. It'd be nice to hit. My goal time is anything under 54. I'd kind of like to hit 52. But with this 10K coming down the road, it's kind of hindered my ability to focus on recovery. I want to give myself like 2 weeks of recovery, maybe more. But what you're going to see in this next training block for me personally is, as I lead into, I think I have just over 80 days after this 10K is done to start building for the Marine Corps Marathon in October. I'm actually going to do something that might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but I'm going to be backing off my mileage. I'm going to be slowing down on the mileage. So last Saturday I did 13.5 at the marathon. That went wrong. Did 0 on Sunday. And then I started really researching what's the best way for me to attack this problem that I currently have, which is in my right leg. And so I'm building a training plan to focus on that. And hopefully that'll be beneficial to, it seems like every week I get on here and I go, I ran this many miles, it's going to look a little bit different this next training block. And I think that's probably for the best. I've already started it, but I'm really going to be working in multiple days of just light leg strength training, hip mobility, stretching, things I don't typically do, but I think I definitely need to start working those things in. And I really got into, so as I was researching this, I found this website, and it's an app as well, called Final Surge. And I'm really loving this app because it allows me to build a training plan and for a whole week, which you could do probably in anything. but it also has like a really robust like tracking system for pain and how you're feeling. And I really like that aspect because I went back and I looked up how my first marathon went, and I was surprised to find that what I remember just in passing about my first marathon is not what I wrote. And as I was reading it, I was like, oh, in my mind, I remembered having quad pain at my first marathon, but I didn't. I had hamstring problems. So that means I had the same problem at my first marathon that I had at my third, and that allows me to say, hey, I'm not having a different problem each time. I'm having the same problem each time. And the fact that it happened sooner makes me think that it was less about electrolytes and more about leg strengthening. Like, I've been trying to get the nutrition right. I don't think it's a nutritional thing. I think it's more I don't have the longevity in my stabilizers, and I think I might have a form issue as well that I'm working on. But all that to say, I really dug into finding a way to attack this, and this Final Surge app, it kind of seems like it's designed for a coach to build a plan for somebody who they're coaching, and then they pull up the app and they can follow that plan. I'm using both sides of it. I'm using the desktop to build the training plan. Now, I will say this is not something you're going to want if you want a quick and easy, like give me a 60-day running plan and it just makes it. It's not that. I'm getting very specific and detailed. I'm writing the whole plan myself. And so when I put that in there, I'm able then to go in and strategize for the week, target those things, and then track how I'm feeling as a result. Now, you can probably do that in any app. I just like the way it looks, and I can really have a lot of room to put notes in. And I love the process of selecting a body part and giving a rating 1 to 10 on how sore it is and how it felt and that kind of thing. But so I built that training, week 1 of that training plan, which I just called it recovery week for the Marine Corps Marathon and the little Miami 10K. So this week, what I've been focused on more than mileage is really recovery. And on Monday, I did mobility and elliptical. And the elliptical, I'm working back into my training plan because when I first started running last year in January, well, I guess I really started in March. I came off of an extended period of just elliptical training because my treadmill had gone bad with the winter of, let me try and get my years right. I think it was the winter at the end of 2024. My treadmill started acting up and I was like, well, onto the treadmill. So that's kind of how I handled it. So I really wanted to get elliptical back in there, and I wanted to get leg strengthening and mobility in. So Monday I did mobility and elliptical. Tuesday I did 2 easy miles, and it felt great. And I will tell you, Monday when I did the mobility training where it was just stretching and putting your legs in weird positions and stuff, I was in a lot of pain. I was like, whoa, like there's a lot of weakness that I really have neglected for the last, this whole time I've been running. I don't really make stretching a priority. That's on me. I know it, and now I'm suffering the consequences of it. But I'm going to learn from it and build from it. But I was in a lot of pain on Monday going through those stretches. However, when I went to do my Tuesday run, I felt great, and I was like, oh, so I could noticeably feel better, like from day to day. And then what happened on Wednesday was kind of funny. I go out and I ran 4.5 easy miles. And the idea in that particular training was at the very end to see if I could hit my marathon pace, which is like 9:30. I was really sore. I did it, but I was in a lot of pain afterwards. And I'm like walking home from my run thinking, man, I don't think 2 back-to-back runs was a really good idea. And I went back to evaluate my training plan and go like, why did I schedule 2 back-to-back runs? It should have gone in my head, like as I'm walking home before I really began to evaluate it, I was like, it should have gone hip mobility, felt great, ran the 2 easy, hip mobility, run the 4, hopefully feel great. But instead I went like hip mobility, strength, like a recovery day, and then run. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And I get home and I realized that I had opened my app at work to see what my workout was for the day. And I was on Thursday instead of Wednesday. And so I actually did the opposite of what I was supposed to do and learned what was obvious to me, which was, you need to get this training block is going to have a day off, a run, a run. I'm really only planning to run like 3 days a week, 3 or 4 days a week with a long run at the end to really capture that mileage and make sure that I'm not losing anything cardio-wise. But so then Thursday, I went and did my light strength training and elliptical again because I missed up my days. And boy, was I sore. I was like, it hurt a lot. And then Friday, I had to do the same thing. I did elliptical and stretching. And my right leg, man, when I do some of these stretches and these just easy, like side planks and things like that, man, there's pain and weakness in there that's just like, it's like you wouldn't think based on those exercises that I could even walk a marathon, let alone run one. So I'm just finding a lot of things. But one thing I wanted to share about the Final Surge app that kind of surprised me as something that I really do enjoy is after I made the mistake of mixing up my workouts, I realized one of the reasons I did that is because I'm jumping from day to day. I'm looking at the app. I'm pulling up. So I'm not a mobility person. I don't know. I'm not good with anatomy. I can run. I don't know. Like when I get honestly overwhelmed and irritated when it's like I think one of the stretches I had to do this week was called like a piriformis glute stretch. And I'm like, but like all of the stretches were like that. So it's not like I had 4 stretches that I know how to do and then one that I'd never heard of. So I'm like, I'm on YouTube looking it up, and then I'm back to doing the stretch. I'm like, am I doing it right? Like, I hate that whole process. And so like when I'm doing my workout, I like to have music playing in my earbuds. I like to have the workout open, and I like to have a timer on my watch. It's a lot of things going around. And what I don't like to do is I don't like to have to pull up the workout, jump to YouTube, switch to the timer on my watch, and then open up my music again because I watched the YouTube video. Like it starts to get to be a lot of like I just want to do the workout, right? And I know initially when I'm learning these stretches that's just going to be a learning curve, and I'm sort of in my mind I'm going, okay, look it up, you'll remember what it is for next time. Fine. But what I realized was every day this app is emailing my workout for the day. And normally I would just delete that, like treat it as spam. In fact, I had so many emails from them, well, what I thought was just like spam emails, but it was my training being sent to me. And I was like, oh, that's like super helpful. So like I printed it up, and it removed one thing that I had to do on the phone. And it really made the last workout that I did a lot better because I was able to just have the workout in front of me, YouTube search, and go back to my music and use my phone for only like one thing. But man, we are just so dependent on our phones anymore. It's so crazy. But basically, when I look at this week of training, I'm coming up on a 10K. I basically put for my takeaway, I'm really loving the Final Surge app and the website, which gives you really good snapshot of what's happening day to day. Right now, I'm feeling about 75% for this 10K. I'd like to PR at around 52. Now, when I say PR, this is technically my first 10K, official 10K. I've done 10Ks before, but all of my 10Ks that I've run have been part of, like they've been a segment in a half marathon or a marathon. So my fastest recorded 10K, like on Strava, was part of my fastest half marathon. And what I know is early on, I'm always trying to pace myself in these longer runs. So I know that there's more to be gained there, and I just haven't gotten to it. And I would like to, in this race, do that, but I would also really like to finish. So I think my fastest 10K recorded on Strava is like 54:30, somewhere in there. So I put in my notes that I'd like to PR at around 52 minutes, but a lot's going to be determined when I get out of the car after 5 hours of driving and see how tight I am. That's really going to be the defining factor for me when I get to the actual location to run the race. But just a heads up, all the training is going to look a lot different in the coming months. This weekly breakdown is not going to be about how many miles I ran each day. It's going to be more about how am I figuring out how to get stronger in certain areas, and how am I healing my leg and these pains, and is it working, is it not working? So in a way, that's going to be good for you as the viewer, because you're not just going to get me ripping off a list of how many miles I ran. You're going to get a lot more than that. So yeah, be looking for that change, and that pretty much covers our weekend review. Now I want to jump into the news, and I want to talk about, I really don't want to talk about this, but I want to talk about the psychological aspects of what's going on with the Charlie Kirk shooting and the trial and just the way people are attacking it. So let's take a moment and make our transition and discuss what's going on in the news. So this past week, I was picking up a lot of, I'm not sure if it's my algorithm or what, but I was picking up a lot of clips from the debate surrounding the Charlie Kirk thing. And one thing that stood out to me is I saw this clip, and it was fascinating in the sense that the amount of detail the person went through to figure out what he figured out. And I'm not even sure if what he was saying was true. It was something I wanted to look up myself because I was like, man, that's like a lot of work that went into that. But I saw this video of, I don't know if it was this week. I don't know the timeline on the things that I'm finding with this particular subject, because it just sort of pops up all the time on my feed, and I don't know, like, am I getting it real time? Is this something that's new? But apparently Candace Owens recently shared this video of Tyler Robinson supposedly crawling on the rooftop taking the shots. It's very grainy footage. There's nothing super revealing, and I guess the big conspiracy or the big story behind it is that some people came out supposedly after seeing this specific video, and they were like, oh, it's clear as day that Tyler did this. And one thing that's super fascinating to me is how some people it's basically a speck on the screen. I mean, it would be like he would be smaller than this. I probably shouldn't do this. Than this right here, this little mark on my wall. He would be smaller than that and grainier than that, like at a distance. And people will go, here you can see Tyler Robinson crawling across. I'm like, I see a dude. I don't see anybody specifically. Like, I can't make anything on that out. But that was supposedly the big takeaway. But then this gets fed into the internet sphere. Candace reveals it on her show, and then everybody takes it from there and starts coming up with all their theories. And basically what this one guy that I was watching did was he took apart the video and started to try to figure out, like, where he was looking at the fixtures on the roof of the building and trying to, with Google Earth, trying to figure out, by the way, it's an amazing world we live in, but he was trying to pinpoint where this gentleman was in the video that they were showing. They were trying to pinpoint where he was in relationship to Charlie on the roof. And so they're trying, the guy was using Google Earth to try to find, like, okay, here's this, like, vent, and here's this building here, and there's like this whole convoluted thing, and then way off in the distance there's this huge church, and they were trying to, like, use Google Earth to match this all up. And I was never and go back and figure out if he was right, wrong, or indifferent on that. Because, again, I think I've said in the past, this is not a subject I really want to get deep into. And I'll share why at the end of this segment. But I was sitting there thinking to myself as I was watching this clip. So this is how my mind works. This guy he kept replaying a section of this clip, and he would take his cursor and go, you can see this structure, and you can see this point and this point. And then he'd switch back tabs to, and while he's doing that, he keeps replaying this like, it's like 5 seconds or 10 seconds of this guy running across the roof, just this little speck running across the roof. And I'm sitting there watching it, and it occurred to me that I was like, wasn't the original story that we were told, like, and I don't know if this is even the case anymore, but that he disassembled the rifle, and he takes the shot, disassembles the rifle, and jumps down. And I see all kinds of memes and jokes and conspiracy theory videos and all this stuff. And I just remember thinking to myself, because in this video, they've gone out of their way to sync the timing up. So he gets down in the prone position, supposedly takes a shot, hops up and darts off the roof. And then they'll, you know, people who are trying to piece all the clips together will have him jumping down and all this stuff. And I'm just like, when does he take the gun apart again? Like, one of the jokes out there is that he takes the gun apart, assembled it, took it apart, left a screwdriver on the roof, like all this stuff. What I have to admit, and I'm not even sure at this point, is what even is the official story with this Charlie Kirk shooting? I like if you were to sit FBI Director Kash Patel down right now and go, dude, here's a sheet of paper right here. I'm going to give you a sheet of paper. Write what happened. No names. Just write what happened. You don't have to say Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk. Just write, based on the evidence that you've seen, what the official story is. Because I don't even know anymore. And like when people make jokes about how, oh, you believe the official story and how did Tyler Robinson take the gun? I remember for a long time, the Rogan podcast would talk about this, and they would talk about this disassembling and reassembling of this old rifle. And I was like, it's like, okay, like, sure, I don't know. But like what I've thought about is there's videos of him supposedly with the gun fully assembled in his pant leg. I don't. So like I was thinking to myself as I'm watching this guy go into an absurd amount of detail into this video, which was very interesting. I thought it was fascinating because all I know is what I was seeing didn't look like it lined up either. He was arguing that the person in the video did not have a line of sight to Charlie. I have no idea. But I thought to myself, it's kind of a weird, I was just watching the video. I'm like, it's kind of a weird angle. And I don't want to be one of those conspiracy theories who was like, well, it looked to me like, oh, what, it could have been this, that. The thing that struck me was it doesn't look like in the video the person gets close enough to the edge of the roof to take the shot, but I don't know the directions. But what I'm asking is, what is the official story at this point? Like, what are we supposed to, like, if you're not crazy? Right. If in order to pass the you're not a conspiracy theorist test, what would you have to believe at this point with this story? Because I don't know what is the current official timeline that we can actually link evidence to. Like, do they still believe he took the gun apart and left the screwdriver up there? Because in that video, the gun doesn't get taken apart. One of the funny memes that I saw was Tyler Robinson took the gun apart, left the screwdriver on the roof for the FBI to find, and then without the screwdriver reassembled it so that they could find the gun. And it's like, that's kind of funny actually, like when you think about it. But what I'm wondering is that whole taking the gun apart and reassembling, is that even part of the story anymore, or is that just something they thought might have been a way that he snuck the gun in, but now we've kind of come to the conclusion that he just had it all together the whole time? Like, is there somebody still arguing that the gun was disassembled? I don't know. I don't understand this story at all. But so there was that. And then the other thing that struck me this week is, listen, of this whole thing, I thought what happened after the shooting, like the week, I think it was like the week after, you had the Republican National Convention going on, or they did their own CPAC. I can't remember, but there was a lot of like what I consider to be strange fanfare associated with this, with the funeral, and they did that whole like TPUSA like celebration or whatever it was. I don't know what they called all that stuff, memorial. Where Tucker and Trump and all these people spoke, and it was just kind of like, I was like, this is kind of weird. And let me just say, as somebody who has, I'm trying to remember the number, 8, I think I had 6, 7, or 8, somewhere in there. I've buried people, all none tragic, all elderly people who just reached the end of life. As a minister, I conducted funeral services. I was there when people passed away. This is weird. This was weird behavior, but I will also say that people behave weirdly in these situations. And if the family felt that this was the legacy he wanted and this is what he would want, then they do what they do. But a video came across my feed that I thought was interesting, and I was trying to think objectively about it. And it was weird to me, the comments in the comment section, but it was this, I don't know how old these videos are. I might be getting stuff that's really old. But it was a video of Candace Owens wanting to know where the body was. And her, I don't know if argument's the right word, but she was just highlighting the fact that in an interview, Erica was asked this. So they were asking Erica Kirk these questions about, this is what the conspiracy theorists are saying. What can you say in response? And they asked about this. And Candace was saying, look at the visceral reaction that Erica has to this question. And Erica did have a visceral reaction. Like, I'll be honest, she seems very performative, but people are performative. So in her role, in her life, she's had a life in front of, she was a pageant person in the past. Like she's has to be performative. It's part of life for her. But when asked about where the body was, she got very like dark and serious and was like, "Can I just have one thing?" And I was watching that and I was going, I can see this from both angles. Like on the one side, like I don't know what knowing where the body would be. I don't know what difference that makes. I really have no idea what Candace is getting at. Like, what does she want to exhume the body and look at it herself so she can determine? Like, it's just weird. It's a weird thing. But I was watching it and I was thinking, yeah, why should that information be? I mean, keep in mind that Charlie Kirk was an extremely public figure that obviously upset people enough to get him shot. Okay. His views, his beliefs, the way he presented them, which I never thought were that abrasive, but, he went into and up against people who disagreed with him. So there's a lot of people who hated him. People celebrated his death. It's a sick world. And I can totally understand why you would want to keep that secret. And she said for her and for her kids, of course. Like that makes total sense to me. But at the same time, her reaction did seem like she does this thing sometimes where she gets like a real dark, like her, when she shows anger, it seems performative and it seems over the top. And what I mean by that is it's like, it's not the amount of anger you would want at the time. It's like super sweet, nice, forgiving. That's the what we're supposed to believe about her. And then all of a sudden you ask her a question like this and she just like, she lowers her head and she's like she just gets evil looking, like, ugh. It's like, okay. I think another similar example of this is when she was asked, like, what would your message be to people like Candace? And it was like, just stop it. But she's like, stop it. Like, but again, it's like performative. It's like she's trying to be serious and not getting it across. But I have to imagine those situations are weird. Like when you're in a studio answering these questions for people, it's what happened before, what happened up to, and now you're in it. Like you're trying to get your point across, not allowing the media to do what it does. Look, I've screwed up just in this podcast alone. I've screwed up twice and got frustrated and had to like get things sorted out and walk away because I'm like, it's frustrating because of the technology. But like, I can only imagine what it's like to be in makeup and probably hours beforehand going through all that. I'm sure it's very frustrating. And the world is going to misread everything you do and say. So you're trying your best to like come across a certain way and it doesn't come across that way. So, but my point is, so like I was watching this Candace Owens like clip where it's like Candace likes to do this thing where she goes, she'll ask a question, show the clip, and then come back and kind of look like confused, like and then you're supposed to fill in the blank that she's clearly like impressing upon you. Like you're supposed to come to what she perceives as the obvious conclusion. My thing was I was watching the video and I was going, she kind of has a point. Like, why should everyone know where Charlie Kirk is buried? Why should they know that? That is a weird thing. And 100%, if you knew where it was, the grave would get, what would be fun? This is kind of sick, but it's just my way of looking at it. What would be fun is if Erica released a false location, like set up a whole display, a fake one. And said, oh yeah, he's fine. You want to know where he's buried? He's buried here. And then let what happens, right? It would be, because what would happen is people would defame or desecrate that site, whatever it is. Probably going to happen anyway. She did go on and on about how they're going to have a memorial for him, and she just wants one thing for herself, and that's fine. I mean, I think that's a perfectly reasonable position to have, regardless of how weird it is in the way she presented it. So all of that to say is I say this is our news segment, and what I want to get to is as I'm watching these clips. So what happens to me is I'll be doom scrolling through running content, through my own content, liking videos of people or replying to people who like my videos and things like that. And then you get lost. Everyone does this. They get lost in the scrolling aspect of it. And then one of these will come up and I'll just linger a little too long on a video like that one I was talking about earlier where the guy was like really going into detail with comparing Google Earth to this video. I just found that fascinating. And then I'll get 10 videos back to back, all related to Charlie Kirk. But the reason I bring these two clips specifically up and don't really want to talk about the shooting. I don't have any clue what went on with that shooting. But what I do know is that people get extremely invested in this stuff. I mean, these clips that I'm watching, the ones that I find, I mean, these people are deep into it. This guy, I mean, I was watching like maybe a 2-minute clip. I want to say it was on Instagram or YouTube Shorts, one or the other. And I was drawn in because I was like, that doesn't look like the same spot. You know, like he had me and he's turning Google Earth and trying to line it up to match the video. And I'm going, first of all, we live in an amazing world where we can do that, where we can fact check it. But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, this is a 2-minute clip. This guy went really deep down this rabbit hole. Like he's in this rabbit hole. He's all the way in it. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, this whole Charlie Kirk thing, it's like a real life murder mystery that people get to be drawn into and be a part of by having their podcast. I mean, I'm doing it right now. I'm talking about it. But I'm not as interested in the murder mystery aspect of it. I can't come to a reason that makes sense to me because in my mind, I don't see Charlie as being as influential as people say he was. I mean, I'm sure he was. What do I know? But like, there's a lot of people who credit him with getting Trump elected. But I like maybe not. I don't know. I didn't know him as a political actor. I kind of knew him as more of a religious person that would defend, religious positions and stuff like that. So I didn't look at him in that light. But I'm like, people are so entertained by this stuff. And I mentioned this a few weeks ago when I kind of dodged talking about it before. And I was thinking about it more after seeing these two clips. And I was like, it really is a real life, true life murder mystery with the added context of like military CIA component. And it got me thinking about like, I think it's Tom Clancy wrote all those books that are basically like drama fiction for men. And I'm like, it's really like, depending on your background, it has all those elements to it. It has, if you want to paint the picture a certain way, it has the potentially conspiracy to kill your husband with the wife thing. It has all these fictional elements. It has the government behind the scenes working. Like, it has all the elements of a story, a fictional story that would be a #1 bestseller. And then, people read that stuff and they have these thoughts in their heads and they get consumed by it. And I mentioned a few weeks ago, it's kind of like Serial, the podcast back in the day when that went off. Like, people love to be invested in the fact that there's a romantic element, there's a murder, there's some things that don't add up. And what if there was this aspect of people get really worked up about injustice? And so you wonder if there was some injustice done, and people really get into that stuff. Like, I've never been a big fiction guy. I remember somebody tried to get me to read, I think it was the Tom Clancy books back in the day, and I'm just not a fiction person. I've always felt that fiction was just a distraction. Like, I mean, I can watch a movie, TV with the best of them, but reading fiction just always felt like too much effort for the entertainment to me, which probably sounds terrible. But at the end of it, like I was even thinking about talking about this. I had one sentence. I was like, I'll just mention it in passing. But then I was like, no, you know what? There is one step to this that I can go one further step. When I look at this, I'm trying to give you an uncredible take as a guy who goes to work every day. Those are the people who are fascinated by this subject matter. They're the ones listening to this content and feeding off of it from different angles. And I thought, you know what it is? And I've thought about this with some of the conspiracy theories that I get into. If you're 100% correct, right? Like, Tell me what the narrative is and tell me what your theory is. If you're 100% correct, what difference does it make? Right? And we're going to talk, for our main topic, we have another news thing, but we're going to talk a little bit more about this. But like, let's say, let me go through history and just highlight a couple different things. Let's say you're right that we never landed. Nobody's ever been outside of the Earth. We've never been allowed out, and it's all a lie, and we never went to the moon. Nobody's ever been to the moon. No one's ever been to outer space. Those are just projectiles in the sky. It's all fake. Let's say that's true. Let's say that's hypothetically true. So what? You say, oh, well, then the government's been lying to us. Yeah. So what? Like, what are you going to do about it? like what are you going to do about it? And again, we're going to talk about this in our next segment when we talk about COVID and the Fauci trials, or it's not even a trial, the Fauci, whatever that was, the political theater. But like, specifically to this issue, as entertaining as it is to think about all the elements and who was involved and how it happened, there is that unknown that would be nice to know. But if you knew, what difference would it make? Right? Let's say worst case scenario. Let's get the most, not worst case, but I guess worst case. Let's say the craziest idea, right? Let's say Israel was mad that Charlie was trying to turn on Israel and support Iran and go against this genocide in Iran, and it was going to look bad for them, and he was going to run for president down the road, and they didn't want him to run for president down the road, so they got a microphone, and it didn't go quite to plan. Let's say all that's true, right? So what? Like, it's awful, it's horrible, right, if that's the case. But so is the actual story, right? The actual story is somebody from the left didn't agree with his political views and wanted to silence him, was maybe a little mentally disturbed, was goaded by his friends, a young person, pulled a rifle out and shot him. Okay, so what if that was the conspiracy? And so what? The reality is there are injustices in the world, and I don't know what, especially this one, right? We're going to talk about Fauci here in a minute and COVID, because that one's a little different in the sense that it affected people, but this doesn't really, I don't know how this specifically affects anyone other than those who are close to him. You know, people are interested in it and fascinated by the entertainment of it, which I find weird, but I also understand it because people love this type of fiction, so they're going to love this type of reality, and they're in it, and it's real, and it's, you know, it's exciting. But like, what if Candace is right? They prosecute Erica Kirk. They put her in jail for the murder of Charlie Kirk. Let's go that far. It's like, so what now? Like, I mean, I guess for Candace, she would be proven right, and then she could continue to do what she does and make more money. She's just vindicated. It makes me wonder about people's motivation, but more to the point, like, that would be Candace versus Erica. But like, the regular person watching these clips and doing these conversations, like even me right now, right? Like, what am I served by talking about this other than just my uncredible musings? Like, what? Tomorrow you're still going to have to get up and go to your factory, your office, your bus, your truck, your school. And what, you get to go tomorrow and be right about something? What I found is people will just find another thing to latch onto and chase. And I can't get past the fact that it doesn't really, if we're honest, get back. It doesn't get beyond entertainment. And this sense of wanting to be right about something, that it doesn't matter if you're right about it. So we love your comments. We love your thoughts on that. I do not want to talk about this subject because I lean into this uncredible fact, but I'm so uncredible on this because I didn't really follow Charlie Kirk. I'd seen his clips and I thought he did a great job. I agreed with a lot of his religious views. Not sure about his politics that much because I was more libertarian leaning, but like, I saw the shooting when it happened, like maybe an hour after it happened. And all that's come since then, I just don't understand it. I just don't understand it. Like, obviously, you want justice. You want the guy to get caught. But even in the days after this happened, I was just, like, befuddled by the FBI's, oh, yeah, we've got the guy. No, we don't have the guy. And then some random guy got handed to us because his dad yelled at him. Like, the whole thing was just weird, and it just continued to be weird. And I don't understand it, other than beyond the fact that this is just political theater that they're using to distract us from something else, which I've talked about in the past. To me, the something else is what's going on in Iran. It could be even more sinister than that we don't even know about. But yeah, like what happens if not even just Charlie Kirk, but let's say your greatest conspiracy theory proves to be right, and then what? Like what? Like maybe a good maybe a good thing to do would be to sit down and write down what you think the story is, what the story that's people present as fact, or what the like I believe this happened. This is what they say happened. Okay, we'll put it in those terms. And then on the back of that paper, so use a paragraph for both. And then on the back, write down what you would like to see happen differently and how it would change your life tomorrow. I have a feeling, as you got towards the end of that exercise, you'd have a very blank paper because, at the end of the day, you'd be like, I was right. Okay, good for you. Then what? I don't know. Like, oh, the government just came out and said there are aliens. We never landed on the moon. Nuclear weapons don't really exist. There's no gold in Fort Knox. That's all been a lie this whole time. Sorry. Like, what's going to change for the regular American? Nothing. For the regular, I say regular American from my perspective, but in any government, what difference does it make? And I would also like to, I would love to know what this looks like from the international community, because I can't imagine they're as fascinated by it beyond the entertainment value of it. And I hate to say the entertainment value, but that's what this is. People are entertained by this. They are entertained by studying it. They're entertained by presenting it and talking about their opinions, and they're entertained by the confusion and the mystery of it all. So that's just my uncredible take on that story. So now I want to switch to our main topic, which it is another news story, but I think it carries a little bit more weight than the simple fact that it is in the news. I don't want to just give my uncredible take on this. I mean, I'm kind of going to do the same thing, but I wanted to spend a little bit more time on this because I think this is interesting from a regular person's perspective in the my subtitle for the main topic is Through an Uncredible Lens. And I think some of the stories that were lost during the COVID years, the COVID lockdowns, the COVID shutdowns, I think the biggest stories that were, I wouldn't say muted or ignored. I would just say didn't get, I mean, some people did get out there, but like a lot of the big news stories from COVID were more about like nurses, which those are uncredible people. Don't get me wrong on that. Business owners, political figures, communities, but it wasn't like your average worker. What happened during COVID? Like we knew it was happening because we all lived it, but the way the media presented it, those stories were few and far between. And again, you can't get them all out there either. But I remember people being more concerned about things like business owners closing their businesses than they were about the employees who work for those businesses. Now, there were times where we were thrown this bone for essential workers, right? Like people who worked at like fast food restaurants and things like that. Those people were allowed to keep their jobs, and so there was a sense in which some upper to middle class people were sort of the targets of this. But this past week, a lot of clips, you probably saw them. I was going to put clips on, but everyone's doing it, and I'm like, if you didn't know this was going on, just look up Fauci. But Rand Paul, the whole, by the way, this story's crazy. Rand Paul somehow obtained and released Dr. Fauci's personal diaries. Now, I remember I was listening to Dave Smith on this, Part of the Problem, and he was laughing about the fact that Dr. Fauci even kept, like, he goes, who keeps a diary? And I was like, yeah, seriously, like, what's weird is that they call it a diary. Like, why not call it his notes from the COVID time? You know, like, why are we calling it a diary? Because, like, to me, I think everybody thinks of a diary as, like, something a young kid has, like, a locket. Like, it's not that, but he was definitely keeping track, you know, of, like, it's more like captain's notes, you know, which I guess is a diary of sorts. But I noticed Fox News was making fun of, like, they had this, like, little cursive, like, pink cursive Fauci's diary, Tony's diary, that's what it said, in cursive. And it was like, they're kind of making fun of him with that, which is not necessary. It's funny. I get it. It's hilarious. But, like, the diary thing is weird. And you know what struck me as strange is so he goes before Congress to testify. And we've all seen the video clips. I think he pled the fifth over 100 times in this hearing. Did not say anything other than, at the advice of counsel, I plead the fifth. He just, you know, he had an opening statement, and then he just pled the fifth the rest of the way. But in his opening statement, before he started pleading the fifth, he says that Rand Paul has released unredacted my personal diaries. He called them his diaries. Like, and you know, his legal team, I'm going down the conspiracy rabbit hole in my head right now, and I'll share that in a minute. But I just got done talking about how it doesn't matter. Like, and this is the biggest example of why I came to that conclusion. But it's like, you know, his counsel sat down with him and said, like, here's, you know, they constructed this written letter so that he would say word for word what was on the letter. Don't deviate. You know, those conversations were had. And he's reading this, and he calls them his diaries. Now, me personally, I keep a journal, right? I actually don't keep it. I used to. I have a journal. I don't really. I should write in it. I don't. I kind of consider the Uncredible Substack and this my journal, you know. But you would think that if this joke about how we released your diaries, like treating him like a little schoolgirl, that kind of like vibe to it, you would think that when he wrote his statement to present to Congress, that he would say, like, oh, Rand Paul has released my personal notes or my journals or my day-to-day thoughts on what was going on. He calls them his diaries, which maybe I did look at them, but I'm like, this is a weird thing. It's funny he said that Rand Paul released his unredacted diary entries. Like, but why? What diary? So weird. By the way, Rand Paul is absolutely epic for this. But I was thinking about this, and as I was watching this trial play out, I thought to myself, this is all political theater. It's all political theater. There's one point where Fauci says in his opening statement that Rand Paul is obsessed with him and is trying to make good on his promise to, quote, put Fauci behind bars. And I remember listening to that statement, thinking to myself, nobody's getting put behind bars at this level. Behind bars. I mean, think about that. When was the last time, and maybe my knowledge is so far gone that I am, in fact, uncredible. When was the last time somebody went to a congressional hearing and then ended up behind bars? Remember how big of a deal it was when Donald Trump said to Hillary Clinton, you know, if I was in charge, you'd be in jail, and lock her up. These people don't go to jail. They don't go to jail. Like, even if Fauci was convicted of mass conspiracy and the deaths of millions of Americans. And like, even if we went like I was talking about at the end of our last segment, like, even if the best case scenario for the people who are mad at Fauci, he doesn't end up behind bars. He ends up in some cushy like facility. You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't be the jail cell that you're picturing in your mind. And that gets me back to this whole idea. This is all political theater. And the real question, which will probably never be answered, is why? Why and why now? Those are the two big questions. But as I was looking at it, I remember when the whole Thomas Massie thing happened here I think it was a couple months ago, where they went hard in the paint to get Massie out of office, and they primaried him. He lost. He's still in office, but a reporter came up to Rand Paul and asked about the Thomas Massie situation. For those who don't know, Thomas Massie and Rand Paul, pretty similar political views. They take a lot of hard stances in the similar ways, and Rand Paul had nothing to say. He's like, not commenting on it. And Rand Paul has been oddly silent on the Epstein files as well. And that's not a conspiracy thing. It's just you see Thomas Massie as sort of the face of that push, so to speak. And when this came out, and I was watching Rand Paul do his thing, part of me thought that maybe Rand Paul was sort of like, I'm just going to do my thing. I'm going to stay elected. I'm going to try to do things behind the scenes quietly. But seeing Rand Paul address Fauci the way that he did and run this hearing, it occurred to me that Fauci's not entirely wrong. Rand Paul has probably put a lot of his energy and focus on this one thing and getting it right. And I think there's a lot of legal loopholes involved here, where in order to get Fauci on anything, they're going to have to be very specific. And I think the way this hearing went, or I don't know what you would call it, this testifying before Congress, I'm not really even sure what that is. You've seen Zuckerberg do it. You've seen all these people do it. But in the end, it's all political theater. Nobody ever gets – what they do is they yell at the person and never do anything to them, right? So, but as I was watching this, and I thought, boy, Rand Paul has gone – he's spent a lot of time making sure he gets this right. Whether Fauci's right in terms of being obsessed with Fauci, that's not the case. I think Rand Paul is genuinely frustrated with the fact that Fauci questioned his credentials in terms of being a doctor back during COVID, questioned his intellect, questioned his honesty and integrity. And I don't think Rand Paul's letting that go away. And I think he's going to use the law to make sure this gets dealt with in some way. Now, I go back to, this is all political theater because no one's going to jail. And you see all these clips of politicians berating Dr. Fauci and asking, like, there was the one guy who was like, what color is your tie? And, just all kinds of ridiculous things. And then Fauci would respond at the request of counsel, or at the advice of counsel, I plead the fifth, blah, blah. And then one by one, these congressmen yell at him and berate him, and they're all kind of just cutting clips for their next election, right? So what they want is they want to be able to say on paper that they sought for justice for the families of those who died during COVID under Fauci's, whatever, however they frame it. That's what they're looking for. I mean, there might be a general sense in which they are looking for justice, but I think we all know there's no real justice to be found in the way our justice system works. And when I say the way our justice system works, it doesn't work the same for these people, for people at this level. And that's where I got into sort of thinking about the meat of what I wanted to talk about today. And this is why this isn't necessarily in the news, but it's more about looking at the world through an uncredible lens. Dr. Fauci, all this stuff that we're seeing, same with Pam Bondi, that was another one where she fumbled the Epstein files and then had to testify before Congress. These people do not act the same as us when we're in trouble, like when we do something wrong. They're not treated the same way. I watch a lot of I watch a lot of these clips where people exercise their First and Second Amendment. They'll go around with a camera and they'll stand on the sidewalk. People will get mad at them for filming, and then it turns into a thing, and then the police show up. And the way those law enforcement officers act towards those people, us, the uncredible, regular folks, is altogether different than the way the justice system works on TV and what we're watching. And I've seen some people now who are doing these memes where they it'll be like, hey honey, where did this new kit to fix the muffler come for? And it'll be like, at the advice of counsel, I plead the fifth, right? So like, I'm not going to incriminate myself. So it's kind of like a joke. But what's not a joke is that if you try that as a regular person in the world, it doesn't go the way it did for Fauci, right? You get held in contempt of court. You might actually see yourself behind bars that day. They might walk you out of the courtroom right then. These people get away. I remember watching the Pam Bondi thing and thinking, like, how does she get away with this? If you've ever been in a courtroom, like for family court, for anything like that, that is not the demeanor you're supposed to go in with. Like they typically want you to be quiet, or a lawyer will tell you to answer honestly. I'm sure in more serious cases like this, they say don't say this or don't say that. But it got me thinking about our justice system and why does it look so different for the elite class than it does? Like why are they able to do what they do when the scope of the damage they cause, given the positions they have, is infinitely greater. I mean, I'm fully on board with what Rand Paul is doing. I'm fully against what Fauci did. But Fauci wasn't the only one who did it. There's so many more people involved, and that's why I say this is political theater. But I totally agree with him being held accountable, but he's not going to be. And it's like, if I murdered somebody, or if I'm trying to think of a way that would make sense in terms of an illustration, but if I was in trouble for something, my trial's not going to look anything like this, right? I'm not going to be questioned like this, right? In two ways. One, you're not going to berate me for the cameras when I plead the fifth. And, I've seen multiple times where people are on the street and they want to, exercise their right to not give over their license because they're not convicted of a crime, and then they end up face first on the ground because the cop doesn't know the law. Like, can you imagine that kind of law enforcement in this scenario, right? And like I said, it just got me thinking that the justice system operates differently for different types of people, and by types of people I mean elitist versus regular folks. And that injustice is frustrating as a regular person. As I look at the world through an uncredible lens and I go, oh, it works differently for you. You can profit off of the death of millions of Americans. You can make tons of money, and this is your consequence. You just have to sit there and read a note for, like, he's not going to have any consequences. It goes back to what I talked about, I think, in one of my earlier episodes. I think it was episode 7, which I've been trying to get the clips out for, where I talked about how, actually, I think it was in the clips I just did for episode 4, where I talk about how this cycle where, this is actually pretty quick for COVID to be addressed. But look at Fauci. He's already got all the benefits, all the money, all the financial setup that he needed from the crime he did. And he's not going to be held accountable in a way that's going to take any of that away from him. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he will. But, the justice system just works altogether differently. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention was, as I was watching it, I kind of thought to myself, it's the one guy who got this blanket pardon is the guy that Congress is bringing in to talk about these things and to testify. He has a pardon. Now, in one sense, that makes sense, right? So he has a pardon, so he doesn't need to plead the fifth, so he can talk because he's pardoned. But on the flip side of that, there's so many other people companies, organizations, CEOs, Pfizer, Moderna. There's so many other people who are complicit in the same way or worse, media companies, CNN, MSNBC, hosts who there's so many. Governors. I have a list here. I have governors, business owners who required, just the list goes on and on. It's like there's so many people. And using Fauci first as the mascot to roll these things out, and now using him as the mascot that or the, what do you call it? The punching bag, so to speak, of the Republican Party to take responsibility and be the face of, quote, justice for what happened during COVID and all the lies that were told and all the BS that was spread. Sure, he was at the head of it, but there were other people. I have in my notes Deborah Birx is fascinating to me because how is she also not involved with this somehow? She was part of the same group. She wasn't as upfront as him. But like, how is she not also being pulled in front of Congress? And she doesn't have a pardon. So she's actually somebody that you could address. Now you'd have to do, Fauci said that Rand Paul is just obsessed with him. Well, kind of. Like if Rand Paul spent as much time on Deborah Birx as he did on Fauci, he might find the same things on somebody who's not pardoned. So it's interesting to me that we've sort of picked Fauci. Now Fauci was the face of it. It's kind of like if you're actually a perfect example. So a lot of people are mad about the Buffalo Bills' new uniforms. This is gray and blue. And Josh Allen comes out and says, "Hey guys, I really like the uniform." What's he gonna say? He's the head of the Buffalo Bills. What's he gonna say, right? But he kind of represents the whole team. So I guess in a sense, Fauci gets to be the fall guy, but he's a fall guy that can't be prosecuted, that can't be jailed because he has a pardon. So he's kind of a weird choice for this. And that brings me back to, this is all political theater. It's political theater because all these people who are cutting promos basically on Dr. Fauci they're not trying to get justice. They want justice, and I think they're genuinely passionate, but what they really want is they really want either a piece of that pie, they want to be vindicated and be told that they are right, and they want to get reelected at the end of the day. And that's really the strongest motivation for all of it. And unfortunately, that's how our system works. And, I guess I should be happy that Dr. Fauci's being addressed, but at the same time, I was looking at this no differently than the Charlie Kirk thing. It's just it's all entertainment. Like it's a show they're putting on to project that they're just, project that they're doing the right thing, project that they're doing something when they're doing nothing. It's weird. So, like I said, one thing that's a scary thought, and I was thinking about this too, because I think a lot about my news feed and how when I settle in on one particular item, how it gives me more of that. And one scary thought I came to is, and I want to talk about the Democrats' response to this as well, but it occurs to me that there is another feed out there of people who still think that Fauci was right. They got the vaccine, maybe they got 10 vaccines or whatever. Like what is made fun of by people that I agree with and the things that I see on my feed, the algorithm that I'm sort of woven into because of the things that I click on and the things that I watch. There's another algorithm where there's people who are like, I can't believe the Republicans are after the science. It would be fascinating to see what Bill Nye is saying now, because that jokester was pushing the masks harder than anybody and claiming it was science. But I believe that those people still believe that heavily. Like I don't think, and the reason I say that is during these fires, the Canadian wildfires, we had the low air quality, and literally, like they went back to some of the COVID protocols immediately. Like they fell back on that, where they were like, oh, you should wear your mask if you're going to go outside. You should shelter in place. Like all these terms started to come back out. I'm like, you went back to that too easily, too easily. And I have in my notes, I was like, what's scary is that, yeah, sure, we're addressing Dr. Fauci and we're saying bad Dr. Fauci. But at the end of the day, some of the things that snuck in that are going to stick around and will be reused again are masks, 6 feet, shelter in place, emergency use authorizations, emergency powers. The next time something like this happens, they're going to go, oh, well, we did it during COVID. And they're going to say it as if what's happening now with Fauci isn't happening. Like we fundamentally determined that it was all a lie, right? The vast majority of it was a lie. Everything was inflated for the profit of elites and people high up in the medical community to profit off of. We know that for a fact. Like that's where we're at. The problem is we're only targeting him to kind of say, oh, we agree, so I'm on that side, but without ever actually doing anything. Like no hospital CEO that instructed their staff to put people on ventilators or to mark a checkbox so they could get a little bit more money, mark a checkbox with COVID. Like none of that's being addressed. That would require work and effort and real justice, and none of that's happening. So yeah, and then I said I was going to address the Democrats. The thing that stands out to me as fascinating, and I think Rogan, I didn't see it, I saw a clip literally this morning, but Rogan was talking about how I guess the CNN was saying that this isn't that big of a news story, whatever, but the Democrats have been oddly silent on this whole thing, and they were the ones who pushed it the most, I think. They were some of the bigger actors, and I think the reason you're not hearing a whole lot out of them is because they know they were wrong and they don't want to get implicated, so they're just going to let Fauci be the fall guy. They're not going to support Rand because that would be high-fiving the Republicans, and that would screw them up with their base. But they're also not going to, they're not going to stand up for Fauci because he was wrong, and they don't want to be roped in with that. So it's kind of a weird balance there, but. I put in my notes that this is really, for any young Democrat who's coming up through, it's really a softball for them to hit out of the park, and they're missing it. Like, you just have to go, look, what Fauci did was wrong. Families were hurt. People, you could use, the Democrats love to do this. You could use the sentimental side of, some people didn't get to see their grandparents pass away. Some people saw their grandparents and thought that it was safe when it wasn't, because the vaccine wasn't as effective as they said in keeping it from spreading. All those things you could jump on and then sort of bolster your case for saying, hey, I'm bipartisan or something like that. And you don't see a lot. I don't see a lot of that at all. Maybe I should do some actual search it up. But after all, we are Uncredible. But as I look at the world through an Uncredible lens, and I was looking at just the average person, even if, like I said with the previous conversation, it's like, even if it's true that Fauci did all this for his own profit, his own gain, his own pride, his own celebrity, and he gets convicted and he gets put in jail, nothing will be made right. The nurse who lost her job during COVID because she refused to get the COVID shot because she was afraid of COVID injury, doesn't get her job back. Even if she gets her job back, she doesn't get the pay that she lost, right? Like, none of that gets made right. So what? At the end of all this, at the end of the rainbow, what is there? There is a politician, Rand Paul, and all these people who berated him, who have clips that they can use to get elected again. And no justice was served. The people who are primarily responsible and who held the power are them. It's like standing up for what's right 10 years later. Well, thanks a lot. No, that's not to say Rand Paul was standing up against it before, but he was ineffective then in stopping it. So as much as it might be nice to see Dr. Fauci get what he has coming to him, at the end of the day, what does it really matter? And so I also put on here, I said, Republicans are going to use this to say they stood up and got justice for the wrongs done during COVID. Democrats are going to ignore it, and they're just going to plow forward, and they're going to miss the low-hanging fruit that is a win for them. And let's see, what else did I put here? In the end, the regular guy, the Uncredible, they have to continue to march to the orders of an incompetent, immoral ruling class, and that's kind of it, right? Like, Because at the end of the day, the people who are evaluating Dr. Fauci are the people who listen to him. That's lost on them. It's like, okay, so Fauci had no authority. He had no power to shut down governments or lock down people or mask. So it's like, you guys did have the power. You had the power to say, we don't want to listen to Fauci. We want to listen to somebody else. We think he's wrong. While other people were being censored, the people who had the authority and the power exercised it against us, the Uncredible people. They did it to us. And somehow they're going to then sit him in a chair and berate him when they were the ones who acted on his information. Right? It's like, okay, so Fauci profited, but he profited because you let him. So who's really on trial here? Who's really responsible? And what's just quietly being missed is the fact that this ruling class, the entirety of it, I would say the entirety of it, the majority of it, was as responsible, if not more, than Dr. Fauci, because he was just one guy. And the irony of the whole thing is that he was Trump's guy. You know, good luck getting that through the MAGA people who are berating him. Like, he was your guy. Like, this is, like, how are you? It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, that's my look at these Fauci hearings, or what is it, a hearing? I don't even know what it is, but that's my Uncredible take on just what I saw. And I don't think there's any solution to bringing justice to a ruling class that is solely motivated by staying the ruling class. And that's what we have in the U.S. Okay, convict Fauci and then step down because you followed his advice when you had guys like Joe Rogan putting people who were being silenced, like Dr. Malone, on his show. It's like, yeah, you're the hero, you're the just one, despite the fact that you were the one who had the power, authority, and intellect to look at Fauci and go, hey, bud, no, we're going to go a different direction here. But you didn't do that. And specifically, you all didn't do that. So, all right, now let's shift gears and look at our podcast feature for the week. And I've actually featured Sallie McRae once before, her Choose Strong podcast. I'm going to do it again because I really like the person she interviewed. Triple Crown winner Killian Korth from 2025, and he has a documentary coming out as well. And I can't wait to see that. I think it's a documentary on his Triple Crown from 2025. He won the 3 big races. I think it's Bigfoot, Cocodona, and one other one. I don't know the ultra scene that well, but this episode was episode, let me see if I got my notes. Yeah, episode 147, From Failure to Triple Crown Champion. And if you're not following Killian Korth's social media or Substack, he does have a Substack, I would. This dude's a beast, and he's really thoughtful as well. I really relate to the things that he says, and there's certain aspects of his life that I don't relate to, the swimming specifically, but a lot of, he seems like a very thoughtful, intellectual type person who's doing these ultras. And I think that perspective, like, it was the first time I was listening to somebody who does ultras, and I was like, oh, I get it. Let me say this. There's one thing about people who do trail running and ultras that I don't necessarily relate to, and it's like this thing where you're on a mountaintop and you see a sunrise. I'm not a big nature guy. I don't hate it, but it's not something that, I like clouds and sunrises and stuff just as much as the next guy, but it doesn't seem to capture me the way it captures these trail runners who, after 100 miles, can see a sunrise and then run another 100 miles. That's like, whoa, okay. So it doesn't have that kind of invigorating element to me personally. But I just clicked my mouse and I was afraid I shut something off. But listening to him talk about, like, not running in groups and just his whole process with with ultra running and trail running. I was like, I get where he's coming from. Like it seems to me like he has an active mind, and he is definitely somebody I can relate to in the ultra scene. And he's also had a lot of struggles and difficulty along the way, which all these trail runners do. All these ultra runners do have their own challenges. But in this episode, they talk a lot about, I mean, I think it was like 2 hours long, so it'd be great for a long run or a long trip, whatever. Just a really good, I mean, the podcast Choose Strong is great. Sallie McRae is, I didn't know this when I first found her on Substack and Instagram, but she is big into the ultra community. She has a great podcast, interviews really great people, has a lot of knowledge base to share. She's been in it for a long time. And Killian, her interviewing him, it's just exciting because he's very successful at it, but he's also failed a lot too. So it's nice to see and hear his perspective on that struggle. And I think a lot of times we look at a guy like Killian who is a Triple Crown winner, and you go, wow, he's just successful all the time. It's like, no, there's a process to this. And I think getting that full picture I think it's important to people who do decide to start doing endurance running and ultra running, but also just anybody who's trying to become good at anything, like seeing how this process of how failure leads to success, leads to failure, leads to success, like, and how you mentally navigate that is very powerful. And there was I wanted to share one clip from the episode that I really enjoyed the clip itself, but Sallie and Killian are talking about like controlling the controllables. And I really liked Killian's perspective on it, but overall as a whole, just definitely, having only done marathons at this point and, in the back of my mind someday, maybe doing an ultra, there are moments in these races where you find yourself just really wrestling with the circumstances. And at my last race, one of the things that got me frustrated right before the race was totally uncontrollable, and yet it really ate away at me. It was the fact that when I got to a great place to go to the bathroom before, I think a half an hour beforehand, and there was somebody in there who just would not leave. Like, I even knocked on the door and all this stuff. It got me really frustrated, and it bothered me. And I'm not saying it affected my race at all, but I think I used mental energy that I could have leveraged in the race that maybe I would have been able to finish the full marathon. I don't know. But as I was listening to this and I thought about some of the little things that get under my skin sometimes, it just had me thinking to myself, like, there's a mental aspect to life in general, but also running, endurance running, that you have to train that as well. Okay. And so it's not just about having the physical capability. You have to have the mental ability to focus on what you can fix and adjust. So here's a clip from the Choose Strong podcast. I'm going to try to get this right. I've been having some trouble with the tech today, but hopefully this will come through exactly how I need it to.
We're met with.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes life a lot harder, is like, I can't control, I can't control this, but also like, I can't do this anymore. And it's like, but you can.
Yeah. Very well said. I think I've said about 200-mile race though. I'm like, I think I can control 30% of the variables. So I'm going to focus on those 30%, and I'm going to have them as dialed as humanly possible. Like, everything I can do to make that 30% perfect, I will do. But the other 70%, I don't care. Like, stuff's going to happen. It's all okay. It's fine. And I think if you translate that to life, you get to 10, 20%, whatever the amount you can control is I think when people overstep their bounds and they're trying to control 50% or 80 or whatever, and you go too far, I think that's kind of where neuroticism, anxiety, like all of those things start to much more easily take hold, because you're ultimately just dealing with stuff that's so much bigger than you. Mm-hmm. But if you can focus on, your circle, it's like, I think that's the key.
Yeah. Do you think that's one of your strengths, is your
I really like the way he encapsulated that at the end there, where he talked about how if you can just focus on your circle, the things that you can control, then you can kind of avoid some of these issues. And when he talked about moving from 30% to 50% and saying like that's where the anxiety comes from, I don't know that the anxiety, it comes from trying to control what you can't control, or even spending mental energy on things that you can't actually affect. And I definitely am guilty of that. It's like if you're in a run, and like for me personally, when my hamstring pulled on me, I do think that was within my control, but at that moment it wasn't. So like I probably should have done things differently leading up to that point, but in general, it was within my control. So that's frustrating on a certain level. But when I look back on what went wrong at that last marathon, once my hamstring pulls like that, you can only control what you can control. So I had choices. I could walk, 17 miles, or I can call it, take as much of a win as I can and heal up. And that's what I did. So I think that perspective on really just focusing on what you can fix right now is super important, and not letting the other things get to you. But it's hard. It's hard not to let those things get to you, rather than let them just get to you and trying to control them, learning from the aspects where maybe you got distracted by one thing that you couldn't control and then you missed something you could have. I think that balance is super important. But highly recommend the Choose Strong podcast, and specifically this episode with Killian Korth. It was episode 147. Sallie McRae discussing ultra running, the Triple Crown, failure, success, and for those who watched Cocodona this year, he was second to Rachel Entrekin, so kind of went a little bit unnoticed. He was the number one male, but because Rachel had such fanfare around her, he came in second. And if you listen to this episode, you'll find out why, not necessarily why he came in second, but one of the factors was he had a pretty serious injury, and he is now out for, I think, for a year. He's had surgery. Like I said, I don't fully understand the medical side, as I mentioned in my stretching and stuff. So, you'll have to listen to the podcast to figure that out. But yeah, highly recommend that episode. Focus on what you can control. And as your goals and your dreams get bigger and bigger, your focus needs to get narrower and narrower, I think, on less distracted on the things you can't control and focused on the things you can. So yeah, check out that podcast, and let's go ahead and look at our quote of the week. And this one, I didn't have one this week, and thankfully this one popped up. I'll try to get that perfectly centered on camera. There we go. Ooh, the focus went a little weird. We'll leave it right there. Sometimes the right path is not the easiest one. I love this. Sometimes the right path is not the easiest one. Love that quote. I was looking at that quote in two different ways. One, just because something is easy doesn't make it right, obviously. That goes without saying. But I think a lot of times doing the right thing is hard. I should have looked the verse up. There's a scriptural verse that says, like, somebody who swears to his own hurt but still goes through with it, he's blessed, or something like that. But sometimes to do things the right way, you have to take the long way around, so to speak. And that's kind of obvious, but just because it's hard doesn't mean there's something wrong with it. Now, you could be overcomplicating something that could be easier, but the right path is, sometimes it can be physically more difficult, but sometimes it can be mentally more difficult. And as I look back on making the switch mid-race to the half marathon last week, physically, the hardest thing I could have done is finish what I set out to do. And you look at that and go, that's the right thing to do. You said you would do a marathon, you paid for a marathon, and the right thing to do is for you to keep your word and finish that. Well, physically that would have been hard, yes. But mentally, it was much harder for me to accept the fact that I couldn't go any further. And so there's two sides to this coin. I'm not sure if I had pursued the full marathon, just pushed through and walked. There's two reasons I didn't do it. One, I don't know that I would have finished. They had a 5.5 hour cutoff. Second, I don't know that I would have finished and been able to walk or run this weekend. So both of those things, when you look at it, there's this this pride aspect to say, well, I'm going to finish no matter what, and then I end up injured and I can't even run the 10K. The worst case scenario would have been trying to finish it, not finishing it, taking the DNF, not getting the medal, and then not being able to, because I was injured, to run this race this weekend. I'll definitely be able to run this weekend. I'm fairly certain I'll be able to finish, and I'm fairly confident I can PR. I think 52, 53 is within the realm of possibility for me at this 10K. So, but if I had ripped, tore a muscle, whatever, maybe I don't even make the trip this week. Maybe I have to push this to next year. I don't know. But this quote, sometimes the right path is not the easiest one. I would say not only sometimes, but most often, the right path is not the easiest one. So that would be my take on that. So let's go ahead and wrap things up. I wanted to, because I always forget to do this, I wanted to make sure I promoted the merch. So as always, thanks for listening to the podcast. Like, subscribe, do all the things. That's important. But merch.uncredible.me. If you want to get merch, I think what I need to do here is, this is where it gets fun. Let's see if I can pull this off. Probably not. Oh, doing this live is not the ideal situation. So there we go. Here is the podcast shirt. I really want this in black. One day I will get it in black, but for right now I don't have it in black. But merch.uncredible.me, you can get the merch. I'm thinking about taking some stuff off the merch website and narrowing it down so that there's less stuff to choose from. That might sound crazy, but right now I feel like even I'm personally overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that is on the website. So that kind of gets to me sometimes, like knowing that I messed my camera angle up, sorry. Like knowing that somebody could go to that website and not fully get oh, that's weird. That's a first. There we go. Not be able to find what they're looking for because there's just too much stuff to wade through. That kind of bothers me a little bit. I really kind of want it to just be a narrow focus type of thing where you go in and there's only like 5 shirts to pick from. So I do like the fact that I have options on the website, like a wide range of products you can put the logos on. But I'd really like to take away, like this cotton shirt, I wouldn't recommend anyone buy it. It is nice if you're not active and you don't wash your shirts a lot. You know, after about 5 or 6 washes, this thing started to fade. So I don't want to have products like that I can't stand behind. It's nothing wrong with the product. It's a cheaper product and it's bound to happen with cotton. But yeah, check out merch.uncredible.me if you want to get Uncredible merch. And maybe I'll pare that down and start getting specific items for the website down the road. We'll see. Also, like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. I always say like and subscribe because just liking the episode doesn't really get us there, and just subscribing doesn't get each episode liked. So try to do both if you can, and only if you like it. Don't forget about the clips too. The clips are out there too. Like those if you like them. What else we got? Follow on Instagram at Jeremy Lundmark. And yeah, that's pretty much the episode. As always, thanks for watching and listening. And remember, stay uncredible.
We are the night shift,
Swing shift,
day shift,
no quit,
no quit,
no quit.
building their world while they talk about us.
Talk about us, talk about us.
We are Uncredible. We are the night shift,
Swing shift,
day shift,
no quit,
no quit.
no quit.
We are the night shift,
Swing shift,
day shift,
no quit,
no quit.
no quit.
Building their world
Building their world.
while they talk about us.
All they talk about us.
Educated,
Experience,
still not credible.
so we embraced it.
Now we're Uncredible.